Now, economists used to tell us that it only takes two big players to create competition and cheaper prices. But in this country, many experts are asking, are our supermarket chains just too big? 25 cents of every dollar we now spend on retail goods and services goes to either Coles or Woolies. And as Helen Wellings reports, one of them is expected to increase its market share even more tomorrow.
They've become like a predatory monster. Like an octopus, their tentacles are extending across the nation in almost every retail sector.
It's a massive share of wallet that Coles and Woolworths are taking out of everyday Australians.
Shopping for food, groceries, hardware, electronics, clothing, household items, medications, toiletries, liquor, petrol, car servicing, even a flutter on the pokies. 8 out of 10 times we buy from the giants of the retail world, Coles or Woolworths. Often you may not even realise they own the stores, and their rapid expansion just continues unabated.
Creeping acquisitions are a real problem in this country, and to date governments have stood idly by.
Scott Driscoll, Executive Director of the Retailers Association, which represents independents, wants the federal government to arrest creeping acquisitions. That's when small takeovers that aren't considered anti-competitive by the regulator gradually build up, thereby destroying competition.
At the end of the day, the consumers are paying for it, where pricing competition is being wiped out by this creeping acquisitions policy of Coles and Woolworths.
Woolworths now owns Woolworths and Safeway supermarkets, Home Shop, Caltex, Woolworths Liquor, BWS, Dan Murphy's, Big W, Dick Smith Powerhouse and Tandy. Wesfarmers own Coles supermarkets, Coles Express, Coles Online, Bilo, Liquorland, Vintage Cellars, First Choice Liquor, Superstore Kmart, Kmart Tyre and Auto Service, Target, Officeworks and Bunnings.
Woolworths and Coles control 80% of the supermarket shelves of the nation. Of petrol, they control over 50%. Of the sale of meat, they control over 50%. But of our supermarket shelves of packaged groceries, the figure is 80%, and it's undisputable, and that happens nowhere else in the world.
Craig Kelly, Southern Sydney Retailers Association, says Coles and Woolworths' growing concentration of power is seeing our food prices soaring to record highs.
Supermarket prices over the last decade have accelerated faster in Australia than any other country in the developed world.
The Consumer Price Index rose 2.2% in the past year, but food prices jumped 5.7%, more than 2.5 times higher. The latest $20 million buy-up, say goodbye to Macro Whole Foods, a chain of 9 organic grocery stores. Woolworths is buying up 8 of them and rebadging them Thomas Ducks, which is their trading name for their upmarket gourmet grocery stores.
Now, Woolworths simply did not want the competition between Thomas Ducks and Macro Whole Foods. Therefore, rather than compete, let's buy out the opposition.
Tomorrow, the consumer regulator, the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, will announce whether it's going to block Woolworths' acquisition.
I think we have an amazingly competitive marketplace here in Australia with a whole lot of diverse players. It must be such a marketplace, so you wouldn't see the concentration of Aldi expanding its line and Costco entering the market.
Margie Osmond, Chief Executive of the Australian National Retailers Association, which represents large retailers like Coles and Woolworths, disputes that the major supermarkets are out to destroy their competition.
Well, quite clearly, we've had a very significant inquiry last year by the ACCC into grocery prices and into this space. And as far as they're concerned, it would seem that the current legislation is doing its job.
Well, there's no effective law governing creeping acquisitions.
Dr. Craig Emerson, new Federal Minister for Competition Policy and Consumer Affairs, says the ACCC's powers are limited. The current law only allows them to consider the single acquisition in question, not to take into account any previous takeovers. He wants legislation strengthened.
So they can take account of what's happened in the past in making a decision about a particular acquisition that's in front of them.
But independent retailers associations are urging the government to act now, before more competition is wiped out.
Consumers must understand that they will only get the best price as long as there's competition in the market. And competition is best served where there's strong, viable independents that can compete on a level playing field.
It's Helen Wellings reporting on the growing state of our supermarket chain. Stay with us. There's more to come after this.